Welcome to Win-Win Island, a cooperative board game where making win-win deals is the key to victory.
You have been elected the leader of your island village.
As leader, you can make the lives of your friends and neighbors better
By traveling through your island's unexplored areas and discovering all the treasures it has to offer.
You will uncover hidden territories.
You'll collect properties, and you'll meet the leaders of other villages.
Try to make friends with the other leaders so they will trade with you.
Because sometimes you will have an extra property or resource that is way more valuable to another leader than it is to you, and vice versa. Finding those trades will help everyone win.
Through exploring, building, trading, and cooperation, you can bring a lot of happiness to your villagers.
And maybe even win a second term as leader of your village. In this game, there is no guarantee of any winners.
But there is also the possibility that more than one player, or even all the players, could win. So go ahead, feel free to cheer for your friends instead of against them.
This quick video instructions guide is going to show you the basics on how to play. Go ahead and grab your box, open it, and we'll go through the pieces. First, you'll grab the dock piece. It looks like this. Each player takes one dock and places it in front of them. I'll show you a quick view of what the two-player setup will look like, and what the three-player setup will look like. Docks are a space on the board, and that is where your player token will start. But the dock has another special ability. The way it works is, when you land on your dock, you'll count the number of villagers around the campfire on that dock. Then, you'll move forward that same number of spaces. If you're visiting another player's dock, you may pay a leader action card face down to its owner to use their dock ride ability.
Let's grab a blank player token. It starts out empty on top. So draw a random villager token from the bag, or find one that represents you as a player, and place it on top of your player token. Then, place your player token on your dock.
Now let's talk more about the rest of the villager tokens, and how they are the object of the game. They represent a person that you have made happy in your village, so they're excited to vote for you in the next election. You will earn one every time you pass your dock, as you make circles around the board. When you earn a villager token, you will put your hand in the bag of villagers and pull one out at random. On your dock, you'll see places for villagers numbered 1 through 10, and as you earn villager tokens, you'll place them there. If you collect 10 villagers around your campfire before the leader action card draw pile is gone, then you win re-election and win the game.
Now let's go back to the box and grab the territory cards. We got a quick preview of their circular layout earlier in the video, but now we're going to go into more detail. If you're playing a two-player game, you'll shuffle territory cards and you'll put
10
between each dock. If you're playing the three-player game, you'll shuffle 24 territory cards and you'll put 8 between each dock. It's important that people do not know what is under these cards. They should remain a mystery until they're discovered. There will be territory cards that are left over, and these should also be kept face down and separate from the rest of the game.
Next, let's grab the leader action cards. For a two-player game, you will need 35. For a three-player game, you will need all 50. Make sure to shuffle these cards into a stack and place them in the middle of the board. Remember, you must keep your leader action cards secret so that you can decide what card to play without everyone knowing exactly what you have. When you use leader action card sets, make sure to create a discard pile that faces up in the middle of the board so that you don't accidentally add more cards to the draw pile. I won't read all of the cards here in the instructions because they do a good job of explaining exactly what they do. You will end your turn by drawing a leader action card.
In the box, you will also find an optional item you can use,
called an Order of Turn card. This is just to help you remember in what order to follow the steps in every turn. When your turn begins, step number 1 will be to produce resources if you have at least one paired group type. The second step will be rolling the die, and the last step is to end your turn by drawing a leader action card. As you travel around the island clockwise, you will sometimes land on an undiscovered territory. When you do, flip it over to reveal its mysteries.
When you flip over a territory, there are 2 possible territory types that you can discover.
One type is non-ownable territory.
They will trigger an event. These cards will remain where they are, and you cannot own them. They will signal on the card what you will do. The other type is territory that you can own, when you are the person that discovers it. When you gain a property, your player token will remain on the spot the territory card was revealed until your next turn. Think of this as floating in the water between 2 spaces. You will physically pick up your new property and connect it to the closest side of your dock. As you gain new properties, your village will build out from your dock in both directions. As you take turns rolling the die and moving your player token around the island, you will start collecting a variety of different property group types. You will need to collect at least 2 of the same group type in order to start producing resources. Any other unmatched property on its own produces nothing, but you can think of it as supplying your village, but not producing an excess left over for you to trade. But every additional property you own of that same type produces resources every round. So 2 properties matched up produce 1 resource. 3 produce 2. 4 produce 3. 5 produce 4. And 6 produce 5. Pull out the resources and lay them out so that all players can take resources when they get enough properties to produce them. These are the resource types in the basic set: metal, energy, wood, graduates, and loans. Mines produce metal, power plants produce energy, forests produce wood, schools produce graduates, and banks produce loans. Resources give you extra abilities so that you can get around the board quicker and win the game. You can learn exactly what each resource does by reading it, or by watching the second section of this video. The only exception is the tourist attraction that you don't have to match up. However, it doesn't produce resources. It has another special ability.
At this time, I will describe how trading works in this game. Sometimes you'll get lucky, and you'll naturally discover 2 or more of the same group type. But the other way you can pair up property group types is by trading with other players. You can trade with other players when you share space with them, or you are on their dock or property, or they are on your dock or property. The only things that you can trade are property cards and resources. Nothing else. But it's important to note that a house or business that is already built on a property that is traded goes along with it. Gifts are not allowed. Each participant in the trade must have at least 1 item for the trade. Okay, so when you're first starting off trading, it might be a little bit challenging to come to an agreement with the other player. Just remember that counteroffers are part of the spirit of the game. They're both acceptable and encouraged. And feel free to think creatively. You don't just have to trade territories for territories or resources for resources. You could mix and match a combination of both. To make successful trades, you will be looking for win-win for both players. For example, if a trade helps both players match up two or more of the same property type, they will both produce more resources. So that's a win-win for both of them. It's even usually a win for the rest of the players because it will increase the strength of the game's overall economy.
Before you get started playing, there's an item in the box that I still want to tell you about. This. It's called a roll token. There's a few different ways that you can start your turn with an extra roll or movement ability. And when you do, place the roll token on your dock to remind you to take the original roll that everyone gets automatically every turn.
And those are all the necessary parts of the game.
Now, you should know enough to get started. If you want, you can pause the video and come back when you're ready to hear A, the rule details of each resource, and B, the various rules that you can ignore at first, unless you are a clever innovator trying to break the game.
Let's return to the box and, as promised, let's pull out those resource cards. We briefly discussed resources in terms of trading and territories, but now it's time to get into more detail. When you are producing resources, you can use them at any time during your turn. Or you always have the option to save them or trade them or use them later.
Let's look at the metal resource first. Metal can be made into many helpful items that can allow you to complete a task more precisely. Metal is produced when two or more metal mines have been collected by the same player. Players can use one metal to move forward one space, to help them get somewhere specific that they want to be. You can only use metal once per roll. It could be before the roll or after the roll, but this means you cannot use two metals in a row. There must be a true roll that comes between each of the uses of a metal resource.
Now let's look at the resource energy. Energy will allow your village to get more done. From providing fast transportation to allowing evening working hours, energy helps get things done quicker. Players can use one energy to double their roll. You can only use one energy per roll, and you must place your energy resource in the resource using area before you roll that die. One more note about the energy resource. An energy will also double other effects that have to do with your roll. For example, if you are in a space that allows you to add +5 to your roll, and you use energy before you roll, that +5 is worth twice as much, because the entire number is doubled. So this is what would happen. If you rolled a 6, the first thing you would do is add the +5 to make 11, and then you would double that. So your final movement distance will be 22.
Now let's look at the resource graduate. A graduate is produced when two or more schools have been collected by the same player. Businesses are the backbone of your island's economy, and you will need graduates to build them. The graduate resource is one of those resources that will require you to collect more than one before you can use its ability. You must use 3 graduates in order to build a business on your property, which will remain there for the rest of the game. Anytime you land on your business, you may roll again. If you land on another person's business, you may pay them 1 leader action card face down to use their business. One more rule about businesses. You can only build 1 business on each property.
Now let's look at the resource wood. Building houses is a long-term investment in your village, and you will need 2 units of wood for each house. Once built, the house will remain there for the rest of the game. Houses function a lot like businesses, except that a house allows you to add +3 to your roll anytime your player token is on your property with that house. If you land on another player's house, you may pay them 1 leader action card face down to use their house. One more rule about houses. You can only build 1 house on each property.
Next, let's look at the resource called a loan. Think of loans as investing in other property types to increase their production. You can use 2 loans to double production of any property type you own. For example, if you own 4 mines, you can use 2 loans to produce an extra 3 metal this turn. So you will have produced a total of 6 metal this turn. The loan resource is produced when 2 or more banks have been collected by the same player. 2 more quick rules about loans. If you have enough loans, you can double production of multiple property types during your turn, but only once per property type. And you cannot use loans on the bank properties. Finally, I will share some rules that you don't need to know to begin playing, but you might want to know them eventually. I'll call it the Appendix. There are 2 leader action card sets that allow you to move backwards, the helicopter and the ambulance. But using abilities to go backwards past your own dock so you can pass it again does not result in earning an extra villager token. Nice try though.
Also, when you start on your dock at the beginning of the game, that does not count as passing it and does not earn you a villager token.
If a business or house is built on the space where your player token is already located, you may then use that building, even though it was not there when you arrived.
You do not need to use loans at the beginning of your turn. Anytime during your turn, you can use loans to cause all of your properties of a certain type to produce 1 more time.
If all businesses have been built, you may use 5 graduates to buy an extra die roll directly.
In the unlikely event that all houses have been built, you may use 5 wood to buy any 1 resource of your choice from the game.
If it makes it easier for you to quickly see how many of each property type you have by grouping them together, feel free to switch your properties around with each other. Doing this will not affect the game, as long as you keep all houses, businesses, and tourist attractions where they are, the same distance from the dock that they started.
Players who have already won may choose to skip their entire turn. If they do, they will not produce, move, or do anything else. But this also means they will not draw a card to end their turn, which gives the other players more turns to try to win. But this choice may or may not increase the other player's chances of winning, depending on the circumstances.
If all players reach 10 points, all players have won, and that ends the game, even if there's still cards left in the draw pile.
The farthest a player could possibly move as a result of 1 roll is 22 spaces. If you are about to move farther than that, you must have made a mistake somewhere. You can get to 22 by using an energy to double your next roll, and then rolling a 6 while on a territory that gives a +5 to roll, so that would be 6 + 5 = 11, double that is 22.
No high-frequency trading to produce extra resources. Technically, property cannot produce twice on the same round to avoid rule exploits. So, if someone trades you a property that is already produced for them this round, you should wait until your next turn for it to produce. Or, you can ignore this rule as long as nobody is trying to do extra property trading back and forth to produce extra resources or anything along those lines.
Finally, we present you with 2 optional house rules. Number 1, the players may agree to a house rule that all trades must be 1 for 1. This may be the only way for some groups to play successfully without the game always ending in a standoff where 1 or more players are threatening to sink the entire game unless they're given unfair trades or something along those lines.
Another optional rule is that when you earn a villager token, you can use your imagination to make up a small story of what made that villager happy that day and tell the other players.
Well, my villager's family's happy because they got to move out of a cramped shack to a nice wooden house.
My villager is happy because they overheard their neighbor saying how much they loved their new house, and they were the carpenter who built that house.